Looks like I'm live. I'm gonna take a look, double check my audio and everything is working on my phone. I'll just get into this quick 30-minute stream as I'm digesting my breakfast. Um, I still feel like I don't know how to navigate. Let's take a look. Alright, so I guess you guys can hear my you guys can hear the really loud air conditioner. Uh, I live next to a restaurant right now, so unfortunately this restaurant has a really loud vent, probably because the kitchen is right next to me. So apologies in advance. This is not like a serious video or anything. The reason I felt like it's worth recording this one is just because I'm at a very transitionary period, and I wanted to kind of talk about my journey in Boston, all of the things that I've learned, all the people that I've talked with, all of the projects that I've contributed to, and I could probably showcase my portfolio website that I made for fun, that I'm going to continue to develop, and some of the new tools I'm taking with me to my next stage in Korea. So, looking back, into 2025, I had an intern offer or a co-op offer from a company called Entegris, which is a semiconductor supplier chain company. Um, their primary customers are TSMC and Samsung. We do a lot of the work that goes into general fab process, including we have a advanced purity system or solutions unit. We do a lot of filtration for chemicals. We supply chemicals. Very interesting company. Especially going into it, I had a expectation of like, oh, I'm joining a semiconductor company, but because from the outside, you don't really have the internal knowledge of how complex semiconductor industry actually is. And it's my first time thinking about supply chain because I've mostly been working with small scale companies, very small, 5 to 10 people, where we do specialized technology. But this is that specialized technology on a huge scale for a lot of international companies. So that was really cool. I came to Boston. I lived in a place called Leshmere, which is very close to North Station. Initially, in a very bad unit. This unit was split into 4, and it was an apartment that was made for 2. And the realtors that were renting out this apartment actually thought it was humane to cut the room by adding plastic walls and divisors in the living room. So it wasn't a 4-bedroom apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, which living room transformed into a additional 2 units. So I had a really big battle with my realtors while I'm trying to manage going to my company, which isn't actually in Boston. It's in a place called Billerica, which is about 16 or 17 miles outside of Boston. So thankfully I had a carpool that would pick me up every morning and take me to the office. But man, that was a rough time. I was getting settled. My dad dropped me off to Boston. I hadn't seen him for a while. Prior to, I guess I was coming back from a vacation in Korea, and yeah, so I got started. They put me on a process to enhance their commitment to sustainability, with specifically how portfolio managers are supposed to enforce and regulate the company's innovation pillar for sustainability. So how do you design new products to keep in mind, the different elements and factors that play a role in enhancing your product's preparation before its mainstream manufacturing to actually take into effect if you want to reduce waste or you want to use less hazardous chemicals. So that was really fun. I'm not going to go too much into the work that I did at Entegris because, first of all, it is a closed book company, and second of all, I don't think it plays a very substantial role in this developer journey. Of course, from a corporate perspective and from a it's a very fundamental and important opportunity to be able to go and join such a large company and get it exposed to advanced leadership. I guess the only noteworthy thing that I did was I just brought my excitement about AI into leadership, and I showcased how what Microsoft already offers as an enterprise company with their Microsoft 365 and Copilot Studio platforms is very, very, very powerful if it's implemented correctly. So I think for small to medium businesses that don't have these implementations in place to at least spread the word about using AI as an efficiency tool, as a retrieval tool for knowledge in complex repositories, I think there's a lot of return on investment for such a small change, using citizen development to just create all sorts of agents that do different things with these platforms. And so that was really exciting for me to explore on a, when I go home working for startups and doing all sorts of personal development with Jenny AI and Manuscript and different projects that I contributed to, but also taking what I'm learning in this fast-paced environment that has no checks and balances and putting it into much larger scale. So that was really fun. But honestly, the reason why I was even in a technical program management position is because before AI development, even though I was a computer science student, I was kind of sold on project management. I wanted to put myself in a position where I'm able to talk with software developers and transform their thoughts and ideas and progress to business people, to end users, and be kind of a middleman to ensure that what people are building is what people want. But when I came to Boston, I had a bit of a grace period, and then I started investigating some of these MIT hackathons called Sunday. I went to an event called Yard Sale or Yard Lunch, which is a very fun event ran by people that live in the Sea House, which is Boston's, or I guess Cambridge's trademark hacker house. So a lot of really smart people there that were very excited to bring out all sorts of different entrepreneurial and humorous ideas in this open forum. So you could just go in, see all sorts of young people pitch their ideas, talk about the process in which that they've developed their product, and then pitch it to people. And there were VCs there. There were a lot of high stakes questions that were being asked. And what I liked is that there was a very diverse group of people that were presenting, right? There was humorous projects that were just built within a day that just showcased something funny to make people laugh and hopefully get a little bit of attention. And there were some also very high impact, crazy hardware software solutions that were being showcased, like a prosthetic arm that was very easily 3D printable and low cost. There was a group called Halo, which was a wearable necklace that had a camera that connected to your phone and would be able to scrape the data that comes off of registering somebody's face. They're extremely successful. The two founders of that company also live in the Sea House, and I believe they're doing a crazy hackathon in San Francisco. So anyway, getting this exposure to what software development looks like in 2025 through this community kind of told me that even with creativity and with my knowledge of how software works in general, trying to put myself into a box of project management and keeping myself distanced from code was only gonna hurt. And so instantly after my first hackathon at Sunday, where I met a lot of wonderful people on my Ad for You team, I just got familiar with Cursor and Lovable. These are like the two foundational agentic builders that really transformed my confidence level in being able to creatively utilize these workflows. Because I've been a ChatGPT user since ChatGPT 3. For almost 2 years, 2.5 years, I've been probably overly using AI, but I always had this feeling that it's such a strong tool to enhance my ability to communicate my ideas. And so, for that reason, I never hesitated to be open and honest about my utilization for AI. Of course, I couldn't have predicted how fast things were gonna come, how amazing these tools were gonna eventually be, but I always had a feeling that this level of building this partnership with AI, not as a replacement for myself, but as this tool to enable me to create and prototype in un- unprecedented speed and quality. I always had a feeling that that was gonna end up happening. So after I started using these tools a little bit and getting familiar, uh, Jenny AI, after I proved myself with my team, decided that Manuscript Check was a good pivot. So me, my good friend Joe, my good friend Chris, these are two incredible UW computer science guys. We took upon ourselves to start collaborating with the chief of products at Jenny and start building a Manuscript Check tool. So this would eventually be an add-on for their main product to help people bring their finished and refined manuscripts and be able to analyze it based off of specific requirements that come with the journal that they're planning on submitting to. And there was a previous video, I believe 2 days ago, that I published with Mark, Chief of Product, that we actually talk about our journey with that. So I'm not going to go too far into it, but this was the first time where I was getting on GitHub and just spending time pushing code and learning about the back end as opposed to trying to just continue to monitor and manage. And so that was a good motivator for me to start using the tools. But the real transformative part was when I finally got out of my apartment. I moved into a house nearby Davis Square, which is a really nice property, and more importantly, the host, Thomas, who works at Imaginary Spaces as chief of staff, he is the most passionate agentic AI builder I've ever met. He used Lovable when it was a command line tool. He's very familiar with the team in Sweden that ran Lovable. Him and his friend Harry, who both run Imaginary Spaces, which is a software solutions company, I guess a kind of a consultant firm that will come in and build your tools for you, based out of Buenos Aires. Their speed and ability to define business problems and create quick solutions with these tools, it was really incredible to see, because it was like I could talk however much I wanted to say, oh, I would really like to have this software solution, I would really like to build an application that does this, and Thomas was like, just when do you want to do it, or do you want to do this hackathon together, do you want to learn together? And so that took me outside of this feeling of discomfort about software where it's not something that I can get really my hands into, and it just transformed completely, because now all of a sudden there are new projects to look at, new code to look at, and my confidence started building where as you use these tools, of course you can build your front-end skeleton to start being really fast, but just having an application that works is not enough. You have to go and familiarize yourself with analytics tools to measure how many people are bouncing off because of a specific issue, things like post hoc, being able to handle payment processing with Stripe, implementing these things into your code base within a day or two, as opposed to taking a week to familiarize yourself with APIs, building loops, forms, making tally feedback forms that came out of Manuscript. There's just so much that happened since I moved to this new home in March. And I think, if there's one thing that tells the story the best, it's probably looking at my GitHub activity. Because this is where you can really tell, like, things got serious for me, within 2025, I moved to Boston mid-January. I didn't have time, so you can see that I started contributing to some things. I believe that's when we started getting like early stage front end of Jenny manuscript. But slowly but surely it just started blowing up, right? Like it started becoming addicting to contribute to projects and see how I can transform them quickly. And even more so now, where I'm extremely locked into a lot of different projects and I know how to do things faster, it's becoming a lot easier and second nature. And this is not a GitHub of somebody who's spending, you know, 24 hours a day on their computer. I'm doing this while I'm working a 9 to 5 and trying to have healthy habits. So, you know, these are within the 2 to 3 hour time frames that I have from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. to just make code changes and make improvements to products that I'm running. So I guess to follow this narrative storytelling, this was an app that I launched just as a portfolio, but I think that kind of seeing the way things took off for me since I moved, you know, the fact that there are all of these projects underway, the fact that people are trusting me to come in and, you know, participate in things like 6devs One project where I didn't feel like I was an odd one out or somebody who didn't actually contribute to the project, right? These are all people that have, you know, very fundamental coding experiences. Ray Fernandez, somebody who worked at Apple for a decade. He's now going fully into the AI workflow and doing a lot of amazing content, streaming about his learnings. No Code Dan, I think he's like me. He's passionate about building for fun, more or less. And Zach and Thomas and Harry, I mean, these are all people that have experience with software, a lot more than I do. But like, thanks to the fact that we're using, you know, speed product development together, and we are all kind of on the same page about, you know, what tools are the best, what APIs are the easiest to implement. We're all keeping ourselves up to date with what are the newest workflows, and we all have our own strategies to make things work. It just feels right. It feels right that to understand and create with AI as a fundamental, I think that's the way that things are going right now. And of course, it wasn't all sunshines and rainbows with agentic coding. You know, I got put onto a stealth product early from Jenny, and I believe that bringing these prototype, you know, tools like Lovable and Cursor, they're not going to be able to understand a code base that's been running for 2 to 3 years. They're not going to be able to pick up on the stylistic pushes that you're expecting it, or be able to pick up on what the product was doing and how it was looking and how it should be, unless it's really been indexing the project throughout the entire course of its development. So you don't want to get into a state where this is the only way you're looking at code. And I realized that after, you know, I kind of had a failed attempt of trying to join in and bring this similar mentality into the products I'm helping Jenny Stealth build, because those are projects that need a lot of you know, A/B testing. They need a lot of retainment of initial structure, not a complete, you know, rebranding or a complete new prototype. Because they have active users, they have to be taken care of well, and they have to be very, very meticulously and carefully, the new changes you're making have to be rolled out very, 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 very carefully. So it's not the solution for everything. I still think that building your fundamentals as a developer to understand what the AI is doing itself, not just vibe coding your way through, but it's the same way where if you're writing an essay with AI, you know, you can make a big scaffold for it and explain to it, hey, this is what I want my essay to look like. This is the content that I want you to talk about and go through. And it's gonna spit out something really generic. Then you have to kind of have this loop with the AI to help it improve, you know, with you know, the term prompt engineering or just prompting, right? Oh, make it this less formal. I want lines XYZ to be better or more focusing on some of the statistical analysis that I'm trying to present. So it never should be copy paste, right? This should be something that you're establishing a relationship with the AI coder or the AI agent that you're working with to not only explain to you what it's doing, but also to understand the fundamentals that are occurring as you're using that tool, right? And so that's another thing that I learned. It's not just there. Even though new benchmark models like 4.0 Sonnet come out, it's not there. You have to still go and get the documentation and find ways to utilize other agentic AI tools to help you build the foundation. And I think this is something that's getting missed out on because people like to clickbait a lot. Is SWE one taking over all of these roles? The answer is no. I don't think that we're gonna get to a point where AI can just do everything. We still need a human in the loop who's good at utilizing these tools and being able to explain to them and craft the output into something that's exceptional, not cookie cutter. You wouldn't just take the first thing Lovable throws at you and accept it. You want it to have its own unique style, because then otherwise we're all gonna have the same looking website. And honestly, we do. Because these tools are easy to use. So you wanna develop that personality and communication level with these agentic tools as you're using them, so it's more of a creation process. You're not cheating your way through it. You're actually spending, of course, a minimized amount of time in comparison to trying to do these from hand, but it's not supposed to just be a one and done. You have to go and test what it's done. You have to go make sure that it didn't change other things, right? Managing things through Git pushes, and none of that changes, and those are still fundamentally key concepts that is going to make the difference between a person that just copy pastes output from an AI and a person that can craft new ideas and formulate better ways of saying things than they could, right? It's supposed to be a tool that helps. And so I'm really passionate about it. I think that it's great that there are all sorts of tools to be using, but throughout this journey, it's becoming more of this dynamic communication where I still have to keep things very human. And so I guess without going so much further into it, just make sure that the personality that you have and your ability to communicate is shining through as you're coding, is shining through as you're writing documentation. You don't want to just take an output from something and plug it into something else. You know what I mean? You have to really carefully construct and remember the decisions that you're making throughout the development process of one of your products. Because maybe it's not making the changes that users want, right? And you need to be able to build infrastructure to make sure you test that. And so yeah, I mean, I wasn't in software, honestly, with my heart 6 months ago, but now that I've experienced this new wave of thinking, this new wave of experiencing software and using creative tools to do things at a unprecedented time frame, that now is the time to take ownership of projects that you couldn't fathom having ownership over before, right? I couldn't see myself making a product that broke $100 ever, because I didn't know how to code, or I didn't know how to turn what I knew about code into something profitable, something meaningful also. And so with that, I think especially before I go to Jenny in the summertime, I'm trying to take a step back and see where are my skills at, like, with this agentic fluidity, with being able to output refined projects. What can I do to contribute to things last minute before I go fully into one product? And I had a series where I was going through lead code questions and JavaScript with Free Code Camp, and that did fall off because I started contributing to another project completely last minute, which is fine. again, that process of taking an existing code base and refining it. For example, we had a website and we wanted to refine that website. We actually created a new one. I just proposed, like, get rid of the Wix site, give me ownership of the domain, and let me make this 2025. And I was able to do it within 2 days. And now have, a loops email for storing context, so we're able to see engagement, and then additionally add post hoc service, so we can also start monitoring what about our application seems interesting to users, and where is our clientele coming from, right? Do we have more Android or Apple users that are interested in downloading from the web? All sorts of insights that we wouldn't have. And so um, I think with that in mind, it's just, I think I'm ready to be able to come into the team with new insights, 100%, and bring this level of energy, hopefully, to help new products find better ways to showcase things, and instead of kind of being in a paralysis of, oh, but the time and investment that it would take to bring this idea out and test this look may not be worth it, and I would just jump on that. Say, no, let's just roll it out. Like, I can do it in a day. I can, if we have an exposed API that could be interesting for people to use, let's just make another website for it. Let's just, we can roll it out within, like, if you spend $20, it is kind of like gambling, but I think, like, if you have a product that's even gonna help creators create something, and you're worried whether it fits the narrative of a specific project or product that you have, make a spin-off. You don't even need to tie names to it. But if you have built something that's worth utilizing, it should be exposed. Even if it's just a small snippet of what your actual product is, compartmentalizing it and rebranding it to be something else, there's nothing wrong with that. So I found that this was really insightful, especially as the level of complexity increases with the projects that I'm going to be contributing to, especially with such a refined tool like Jenny and all of their stealth products. It's going to be an important sentiment to say, if there's a component of this tool that we have that could be a standalone, I think that's where I'm going to be interested in saying, let's just make it a standalone. We can keep the back end completely the same, but the the flow for the person or for the end user can be completely different, right? They can just get what they want instantaneously, as opposed to dealing with other complex layers of a more refined product, right? So, why am I doing this rant session? Ultimately, I think, I have a lot of emotion about coming into Boston and actually leaving, because, this is kind of the epicenter of creativity for me and exposure to software in a new light. I think it couldn't have been a better time for me to come here to incubate, because I'm very easily distracted, and having a 9 to 5 kind of kept me in lane, right? I couldn't completely go off the rails and find some project to contribute to that maybe sucked up too much time. So managing myself was a very important layer of my time here, and it just pushed me to new comforts of saying, like, even if I have an hour, instead of just taking that hour for granted, an hour with agentic coding could be, V1.1 becoming V1.2. Like, you can push all sorts of changes within an hour, and you could even build a new product within a day, right? The moment I thought it might be worth building a portfolio site to creatively track, my process for anybody who's interested in my story, like, that's not a problem. That got released within 2 days. Buying the domain took an hour in one day, and then, taking an existing repository and transforming it into something that's uniquely me, that took another day, right? And now what's nice is I sat with that, I looked at it, and I said, okay, people know about my development story. Why not showcase my music portfolio? And instead of saying, oh, that's pretty complex, I don't want to do that. Now I I can do it. You know, the next hour I have on a plane, or the next hour I have sitting around, instead of just being in that paralysis of, is it worthy for me to investigate, or is it worthy for me to spend all of this time identifying something new to produce? It's like, just go and produce it. You know, you can roll back your changes anytime, but at the very least you're trying a new way to prompt, or you're improving the documentation and indexing or context management. You're building those fundamentals. And what's weird is, it is a bit of shamanism, I guess, when it comes to like prompting and expecting the prompt to put out what you want. But I really feel like building that foundation, even though there's no science behind it, you know, there is a science behind prompt engineering that I think was very important last year, the year before that, when we were at ChatGPT 4 or ChatGPT 3.5. That, you know, you had to really craft what you want to get outputs. I think everybody's understanding of what AI could do was still very nuanced. Like, you were just getting a bunch of ChatGPT wrappers, and I wasn't really thinking on a large scale there. You know, I just thought it was a good way to augment text output and re-input it elsewhere. Now it's completely different. So I think that you don't have to care so much how you're doing these things or how you're interfacing with the tools, but doing it in and of itself is going to teach you a lot about what particular phrases help improve the output. Um, so honestly, I don't want to, you know, keep walking around in circles and talking about this stuff. I like to showcase it as opposed to talk it, but I still feel like the learnings that I took away from Boston is not something I'm just gonna let sit in my head. Um, I recently just installed Obsidian, so kind of tracing the stories that I'm writing with this stuff is important as well. You know, because it is a cool tool. And I have also put Cursor into my Obsidian repository for coding documentation, just to help enhance the speed in which I'm making change logs. Because again, it may not be worth it if there's just one thing that I want to make sure it is documented and Cursor can refer to it. I may not write that, but for personal mind mapping, it's been really fun to kind of play around with the tags and specifically the graph view, and kind of see my knowledge expand through time about different concepts and relationships between where my mind is going, and how I'm connecting the dots between things. So I guess what's to expect from me coming forward. I think this might be my last stream for like a, you know, a week or two, because I'm gonna go to Portugal with my family, and go to a wedding. Um, I don't know how comfortable the Jenny team would be about, you know, this level of documentation for the stuff that I'm doing within their projects, but I think Mark and I did establish that we want to make Manuscript a very public forum, and showcase that we are very, very, very passionate to get Jenny users or Manuscript users to be a part of what products we're building for them. So yes, I will be probably very active on the online space, and I will definitely have some streams here and there with Mark to talk about our current state with the project and some of the changes we hope to implement. Um, but in terms of like everyday streaming, I want to continue that the grunt work, you know, get back onto my lead code grind a little bit, at least like showcase that I'm still contributing to connecting the dots of algorithms from a classical standpoint. I'm not even doing it for interviews' sake. I just feel like spending time with raw code and thinking about algorithms is always important. So, you know, because it makes what the AI is doing when it's doing complex tasks a little bit more easy to understand. So I definitely want to keep that up. I'm sorry that I haven't been so active these days. with the core content that I was trying to build, learning unfiltered. The only reason behind that is just because there was some um, worthy full stack stuff that I wanted to do as a favor for a friend, and because I think that the project that they have is definitely worth at least building a nice web application for, and I knew I could do it within a day or two. So I can talk about these projects in another streaming session, but I just wanted this to be my mental map of, in retrospect, it's June 6th, I leave June 7th. My plane got here January 21st. These are all of the things that I'm thinking about right now before I go on vacation and hopefully rest a little bit from software. And also I was digesting my breakfast before I go on a run. That's kind of another motivator. And drinking coffee is never a bad thing. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I hope if you are following my journey right now, you can look at this and say, all right, the barrier of entry has never been lower. There's nothing stopping me from just looking at my phone like it's a waste of time, and like a screen is never a bad thing. You can always take your screen and go do something somewhere else, but not creating when creating has never been easier is just, it's a waste of time. Or it's not a waste of time, it's a shame that there are so many people that are consuming as opposed to creating these days, because the barrier of entry has never been lower. You don't have to be a magnificent coder to come up with your own portfolio. Like, all you need to do is craft your words in a way that an AI can understand exactly what you want, and that's it. That's it at the end of the day. You can create all sorts of mental sketches with image generators, video generators. It's multimodal. You can do whatever you want. If you need help with the drawing and you want to at least build the core idea behind it, you can explain it to an AI. I'm definitely more ethically concerned about utilizing AI generated images as your own personal artwork. That's definitely, I think that crosses a line for me. But use it to enhance your creative ideas, right? Anyway, I don't want to rant, but this has been my Boston journey so far. These are the key AI takeaways that I think are worth talking about. And the only reason behind this video is just, when it's 20 years down the line and I'm curious how I was feeling when I was leaving my first corporate experience. What am I thinking about? And am I really mentally prepared to go and put my head down in a startup, for 60 hours a week, which of course I am. I'm very excited to do it. But am I thinking about the right things? I think is another thing, especially when I go there. Is all of this fundamental building heading in the right direction for real application use at such a lean startup? So that's it. I'm really glad that I turned on the camera and did this. It was either that or, rotting and sipping coffee and looking at YouTube, or wasting time trying to nap. So yeah, thank you for coming. If you watched this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next one. Bye-bye.